Good evening, everybody. The time is now 7 p.m., and this meeting of the Finance Committee of February 25th, 2025 is now called to order. Excuse me. Just to note that this meeting is being taped by WCTV for future broadcasts. We also have a 3-minute limit per person for public comments. We'll start with roll call. John Doherty is excused. Mary Ann Galezzo.
Here.
Chris Diorio is excused. Brad Jackson is excused. Andy Levine.
Here.
Joe Levino.
Here.
Anthony Nelson.
Here.
And Scott Neville.
Here.
And myself, Teresa Manganelli. Our first meeting tonight is with the Information Technology and John O'Neill, Director. And his budget is on page 22. And he also has a capital budget. Welcome, John.
Good evening, everyone. I believe I know everyone here except for Mr. Nelson. Ms. Nelson, it's nice to meet you. I'm John O'Neill, the town's IT director.
Nice to meet you in person.
For the format, would you like me to go through the delta of the changes? I could do a presentation. I could.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't really much, there isn't too much difference in anything besides salaries. I think if you explain
Okay.
the difference in your staff salaries, that would be a good place to start.
Understood. Thank you. So the largest difference from last year with this year is my salaries account. This year, it is proposed to change by $114,559. The big portion of that is for a new software implementation specialist, and there's $75,000 in that number earmarked for that position. That position is going to be dedicated to our Munis implementation project. Right now, we are in the utility billing phase. Last year, my staff and I participated in over 100 meetings with the parent company for Munis just on one particular phase of the project. It took up significant bandwidth with my staff, with Eric and Judy coming in, as well as Stephanie Frontiera. They quickly recognized that the town desperately needed a dedicated Munis position, and that is being proposed as a way of a software implementation specialist in this budget cycle. The additional change from FY25 is $21,500 in miscellaneous contractual. Those numbers consist of a Munis increase of $11,000. Munis now costs us $230,000 a year. It should be recognized that this software is a replacement of a number of other software systems, and it's also the ERP system for the schools as well, and the town pays for that portion. We're also including $7,000 to use the cloud for Vision for the assessor. Vision is basically assessment software that the assessor relies on. We also have some increases to engineering software, AutoCAD and PeopleGIS. Some slight increases to our virtualization costs for anyone in the tech sector. The major player in virtualization software, VMware, was bought by a different company, Broadcom, last year, sort of switched things up. And there's also some other minor miscellaneous software increases, and a couple new cell phone lines, one for the new bridge therapist, one for this new position, and I think we added one more on the police side as well. For my capital this year, I've included 2 requests.
John, do you mind if I interrupt real quick?
Sure.
Don't bury the lead about the reduction in the cost of software. I mean,
Sure.
We promised that, you gotta,
Yes.
you gotta make sure you.
Yes. So we did decrease our software costs by around $37,000 because we were able to implement the tax revenue phase of Munis last year. So we're slowly but surely scratching away at those secondary software systems that Munis is replacing. The the two capital requests this year are, one is for police mobile computers. These are the actual computers in the police cruisers. And that's going to include this year, as well as e-citation printers. This allows them to print citations directly from their cruisers instead of it being mailed out at a later date. We budgeted $50,000 for that in FY '26. And also, we're also requesting funds for shared storage. The shared storage, these costs are for basically the data that's not only the file servers, but the data that consists of our virtual machines. And this allows us to pull servers off our virtualization, spin them up quickly, and it also creates redundancy across our files. The 100, I think it was sorry, excuse me, 1 second. Just want to make sure I have this number correct. Yeah, the 135,000 is for, as I said, it's two different data centers. One's for the town and all the town's operations, and the secondary system is at public safety, and that's for the police servers.
What is this exactly? Is it a piece of furniture or is it software?
It's actually basically an appliance, and it consists of hard drives as well as basically a controller server that controls those hard drives in that space.
Thank you.
I have a question. Are those going to be located in the same place? And is that like a I think they call it active, or is it going to be active-passive?
So these are active. So they are located at the same place with our move to the new town hall. That shared storage system that will be set up here will go with us to that new town hall.
And this is net new. We don't have this DR.
This is replacing our current shared storage system. I apologize. I believe I do have the date when we last.
FY '18?
Yes, that sounds correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Anything else we should know about your busy department?
I believe we're significantly busy. As I mentioned last year, two of us from my staff right now, we're a staff of 4. We're in over 100 meetings just for Munis, and topping that with the 2 building projects and other software upgrades, we're definitely busy. We also need to meet Windows 10 end of life deadline, which is this fall. We have about 120 computers that we need to upgrade to Windows 11 before the fall. We're also slated to, the construction is on schedule for the new town hall for late October. So we're looking at that as well. My staff is busy with the treasurer's office, the finance office, and DPW on the Munis utility billing phase. We're also in the middle of upgrading the police SharePoint. That's also going to include a mobile app. We're working with a company now. We have a lot going on.
Any questions for John? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right. So you mentioned how busy you are in the fall with moving into the new town hall. Do you have a plan? Because I assume that your department's going to take on a big responsibility of getting everybody kind of set up there.
Yes, it's my hope that we'll be working closely with the management about a phased approach of moving departments one at a time, and thankfully we can keep this building connected and move departments into the new building once that's online, and still have staff here and staff working there at the same time.
Great. And one other thing, the last couple of years we've talked a lot about the safety, IT safety and stuff like that.
Cybersecurity.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So I think, were you guys using the Know Before?
Yes, and thankfully, the 3A compliance did not impact that grant program. It's a service grant, so there's not a a set dollar amount for what we get out of that, but we were still able to get into the program this year, which I'm incredibly thankful for. I think a major part of battling cybersecurity, it's at the end user level. It's not at really even my level. It's with everyone who sits on a computer and logs into the system. As I mentioned, I think even last year, there's a responsibility across the board for anyone with technology to use it as part of, cybersecurity and what to be aware of.
Okay, great, thank you.
I have one more question. if I can. 4 people at 370K is around 90K per. Are you, given everything you have on your plate, if you were to lose somebody, are we properly paying people, and will it be difficult to backfill?
That's a great question. I think if you asked me this question 2 years ago, I think we would be in a very difficult position if we lost someone in this department and to be able to continue on. Last year, you were fortunate enough to recommend my budget that included another person. So we're in a much better place 2 years ago. Once we get this software implementation specialist on board in FY26, I think we're going to be in really great shape as a department.
Joe?
Hey, John.
Hey.
Couple questions, really around the miscellaneous contractual services, because, yep, there was a modest jump this year, but the previous year, there was a big jump.
Yes.
And if I recall correctly, there was a couple factors associated with that. One was the multi-factor authentication or some implementation of that.
Yeah,
Was that fully implemented?
it was. So we fully implemented, this was an insurance compliance issue, is that we needed to implement Cisco Duo MFA across the board on user accounts for computer accounts as well as email accounts. We successfully implemented that.
So in this year's budget, are we still spending money on implementation, or is it just
It's-
upkeep and maintenance?
It's just the annual subscription costs of that service.
Okay. And in regards to Munis, and you had mentioned SoftWrite,
Yes.
so my understanding was that there was a couple redundant systems on top of Munis, right?
Yes, there still are. We're slowly moving off them.
And when do we expect those to go away?
So this utility billing phase that's happening this calendar year, this is a big piece of that, is going to remove what we're using for water and sewer charges, which is called Continental Utility System. That process, they said it would be 40 dedicated full days in the calendar year. We're splitting it up to half days to not put too much on the departments. So that's going to be 80 days. We're really hoping, I think we're shooting a go live date for the utility billing of next spring. And that would put us in a position to move off of that Continental and save us money.
Gotcha. And last question, I recall last year you mentioning a big increase in just cost of licenses that you take out.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
you experience the same thing again?
So what I'm about to experience is going to be increase in hardware with the sort of the climate that's going on with international tariffs. That's going to directly impact me from my understanding of what my vendors is telling me. I haven't seen what those prices are going to be yet on laptops and different computers, but my understanding is that's where I'm going to see it.
Okay. Thank you.
Quick question for you. On the additional personnel,
Yes.
I wouldn't pretend to tell you whether or not you need more people. I would assume that you all have budgeted that. Typically, you said software implementation person. It's typically, there's 2 ways to do that. One is you hire someone directly from Munis who pays an hourly rate. They come in, they deploy the software, and then when things are all done, they're gone. And then the other approach, which it sounds like we may be taking, is to hire someone with historical background with Munis implementation who would no longer be a Munis employee.
I can certainly speak at length about this. So we're looking for and I can understand one of the routes we can look for is to contract an outside consultant, an implementation specialist. What we found in these past couple of years is that we really need an in-house expert who can not only learn the new software system, but learn the ins and outs of what we're doing in each of these departments financially and the processes and the different ways where sort of whether it's billing, accounts payable. We need a position who can learn Wilmington's way of doing things, who can also go out and look at the other communities in Massachusetts who are also using Munis, who can compare that to how we're doing things in Wilmington. We're also looking for an individual who can attend, actually Munis, Tyler-sponsored, Tyler is the parent company of Munis, end user training conferences. We're looking for basically a full-time position to dedicate themselves to this software. And Eric has spoke a little about this in past meetings in front of the select board, but this ERP system, Munis, it's not something that's ever going to stand still in Wilmington. We're going to continue to implement different parts of the project going forward. For instance, as soon as we complete this utility billing phase, we need to start looking at building permits. That's been a long ask of the community and the different contractors in town have been looking for ways to jumpstart ahead of what they're trying to do in the building inspector's office online. Also, as sort of, I think we all know at this point, is that, nothing stays static when it comes to software and technology. We are going to need to upgrade this Munis software, and those significant upgrades, we're going to have to work with each of the departments to test those upgrades before we go live. So it doesn't have a huge impact, negative impact to the departments, and we can make sure that we're aware of any changes in any sort of upgrade. That is all a huge undertaking for a department and an individual, and we think that's best served with someone who's hired to work for the town of Wilmington.
So to paraphrase my understanding, tell me if it's right or wrong. It's a multi-phased approach. It's not just the software is implemented and we're done. It's the software is implemented and then we move on to the next use case for the software and we implement that.
Yeah, so the software is very modular, that you can add on different pieces of it, and exactly what you said, as soon as we're done with this next part, we're going to add this next piece.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
John, would this be the same person that we spoke about before, that if somebody in the building is having a problem with the software, or, utilizing it or not knowing what to do, is this person the person that they'll be calling on?
So-
Or is there another person that this person is also kind of taking a different look?
So it's a little bit of both. So they will be available as a resource, as my department, we all are, for Munis users in the town. But we also have in Tyler, the Munis's parent company, has a pretty great support staff of being available. So it's a little of both. They're going to be available as support if needed to work directly with someone, work on these implementations, but also Tyler support is still available for end users as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Nope. All right. Okay. Could you state your name and address, please, for the record?
Good evening, Kevin McDonald. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Before you begin, Mr. MacDonald, out of a courtesy to you, I'm allowing you to address each department head, but I would like that courtesy returned to me. When you hit 3 minutes, that's it, okay?
Okay,
Do you agree to that?
yes, did you
Thank you.
pledge allegiance tonight?
Excuse me?
Did you pledge the allegiance to
No,
the
we
flag?
did not. What is your comment or question for
Okay,
the
I just
department?
wanted to remind you about liberty and justice for all, but my question's actually going to be for him, but I'll go through you.
Thank you.
Or would you like me to ask him directly?
You can speak and,
Okay. Thank you for being here. With regard to the current shared storage system, how old is that system?
It's about 6 years.
6 years old, and what's the typical life of a shared storage system?
Technically, it's 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years. And your employees, you said you had a staff of 4?
I do, yes.
And typically during the day, when they're not having to fix a computer problem or something like that, what would be a typical day of what they would do in the IT department?
Sure. So there is actually very little downtime in the IT department. While I think I mentioned we're implementing this Munis software system, at any point in time during the week, a lot of times I have 2 employees dedicated to those implementation sessions, while 2 of us are covering tickets and also working to upgrade the different computers that we need to meet the Windows sunset deadlines. As I mentioned earlier in this meeting, we're in the process of actually upgrading close to 120 computers. So there really isn't any downtime.
Okay. And years ago, there was a company called the Merrimack Education Collaborative, and it was a storage system. It was like a backup. Does the town still use that company?
Well, we do not. I do believe that company was sold actually a couple of different times, and I believe the current parent company is Cherry Road Technologies.
Okay. The reason why I ask is there was like a big scandal with that company, and I'm glad to hear that we're not using them anymore. And so, with regard to the location of the IT department, is that going to be all at the town hall and then a subsection at the police department, or would there be any other locations where it'd be at?
So that's a good question. We haven't had dedicated office space in public safety in close to 10 years. We're currently housed in the public buildings building. As a full staff, we travel to the buildings that have our data rooms. It's not a huge issue to us because there's certain circumstances where we can work remotely from that office. We do not work remotely from home, but we do work remotely to connect to other computers and other offices from the office we work in.
And will that stay like that, or will that everything be moved to the town hall?
My offices will be moved into the new town hall.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
And so just a very last
Thank you, Mr.
question.
McDonald. You've exceeded your time now.
My time is
So
not his
our
time.
next-
Excuse
our
me.
next appointment
Excuse me.
tonight- thank you
Excuse
very
me,
much, John.
Chairman. My
Thank
time
you.
is not his time.
Thanks, John.
Appreciate that.
Thank you,
Our
everyone.
next appointment is with the town clerk. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Page 28.
Good evening.
That's
Did you say 28?
28.
28,
Her
yeah.
budget is on page 28.
Good evening. My name is Beth Lawrenson. I'm the town clerk. I actually have 3 separate budgets that I present every year. I'm going to start with the one I have more changes in. 2 of them are pretty stagnant. That would be the town clerk budget. I'm going to start with categories and just run right through them, and I'll stop and see if you have any questions. I'm going to start with miscellaneous contractual services. I have 3 items in my miscellaneous contractual services category, excuse me. My dog and vital record program is, yearly I have to renew the support and the software upgrade fee that allows the residents to register their dogs from home and to purchase vital records with credit cards. It's a convenience to the public. We were billed $900 last year. I believe I budgeted $800. This is going to continue to get slightly higher every year, so I budgeted $1,100 for this. And also, this will, if there's problems with the program, this will cover the support. So it controls how much we'll be paying towards calling for technical assistance to the company. And they also pay for my time clocks and my typewriters to be maintained. So again, no matter how many times they come out, it's a yearly fee. And some years I have them come out a lot. Last year, I think I had my time clock serviced 3 times because of the election and the ballot questions. This year, probably only once I'll have it serviced. I'm going to move on to training and conference. My assistant town clerk and I attend conferences throughout the year. There's 3 of them, and it's run by the Mass State City and Town Clerk Associations. They bring in the state government, so they bring in elections, conflict of interest, attorney generals, Department of Revenue, and they just give us reviews on changes of the law. It's really important during a state election year and an even year because the law changes so often now that they need to give us guidelines and new deadlines, and it's been very helpful to me. That's increased a little bit in hotel fees because it's always out in Western Mass, and it's increased in the conference fees, but not a big significant change. The next category I have is printing, advertising, and binding. I've increased my preservation fee by $500. The prices of materials have been growing. And what I mean by preservation is antique documents that are in my vault. I try to have a plan at the beginning of the year of what I want to accomplish in restoring them. Last year, you had given, usually it's $3,500, I increased it to $4,000. Last year, you had given us $3,500. One of the things we did, my assistant town clerk applied for a grant. It was the Veterans Heritage Grant Program. So we had several death records that men that were killed in action, they had taken the burial permit, the military burial permit, and stuck it directly to the death certificate, and they were deteriorating. So they were slowly seeping up through it. We had them restored, and this was the result of that. So we'll be able to read we still have the original, which is in here. And this was 1940 to 1947 is what we did last year. And we did it with a company out of Andover. So if you look, let's see if I can find it. It's back here. Those are the permits. I don't know if you can see. All of this was bleeding through, and we weren't going to be able to read it. And one of them was killed in Normandy. And they were like 17, 18, very, very young men. So that was one of the things that I wanted to give you an example of what I do with the funds that you give me. Another increase in this category is for my vital records storage. Anything new, because I have to restore things that are from 50, 60 years ago, anything new I put in protective sleeves, and they go into a hard binder that I can take apart and scan the documents if I need to. The vital records increased all of my vital record sizes to 8.5 by 11. So that slightly increased my cost with Universal products. So instead of having half the binder, I have to have the full binder included. And then, okay. So the big change I have, my blue vital records paper increased slightly as well. The big change I have, due to increased responsibility caused by the changes in the laws for public records requests, conflict of interest in early voting, I felt it was time to increase my staff and restructure, and I've spoken with management about this. Back in 2021, they changed, the public records law changed in 2017, in 2021. It required a records access officer. It required us to keep a log. So my job is basically to protect the town against possible accusations. So if someone sends in a request, it gets logged in, I put in an assignment, who it got assigned to, and then when it's responded to, I put in the response. It's all electronically. Some of them are very wide-reaching. Some of them, we have about 3 or 4 industrial parks. Every time they sell, their files are maybe 2 feet wide, and they want electronic copies of all of them, and we just don't have them. Some of them were built in the 80s. Some of them were built in the 70s. So it basically takes up a lot of our time, and this would be one of the main tasks, would be helping me in helping the other departments with scanning the requests as they come in until we can get town-wide digital documentation. And also, the amount of volume we're doing with elections and with conflict of interest, it's gone on to, I know you all love conflict of interest, but it's gone online, and my assistant clerk has to check that every single day. She has to shoot out some emails, reminding people, reminding managers who haven't done it. It's taken up a lot of her time. And basically, it's because of the change in the law, again, it's more work on us. The last time we had an increase in our staff was in 1998, which is population, volume, even the dogs have gone from 1,000 dogs to almost 3,000. So January to February, my department is pretty cyclical. We're date-driven. We have 10,000 households that get censuses that get sent out by a mailing company. Then they come back in and have to be processed by us. I've done several things to try to send some relief. I use senior work-off. I've used my election workers last year because any of those events that happened last year was a month-long event. It wasn't an election. It was a month-long of thousands and thousands of ballots in processing. And so I did bring in election workers that were minimum wage. I have increased my responsibility of my assistant town clerk, which really I need the union to do that. She's still in the union, and so I have to be very careful with what I hand off to her, what's in her job description, what's not in her job description. So the conflict of interest law has changed, the election law has changed. They have, I believe, 5 bills to change it again by June. Every time it changes, it seems to give us more work. It doesn't relieve our work. So from September to November last year, my girls worked 100 hours of overtime, and weekend, Saturday, Sunday. It was very time consuming, and we come in early and we'd work late just to get the ballots out in a timely manner because we're required to by law. So the election law is really only affected every other year. We're also, I know in the manager's budget, he had talked about a digitizing project, and I had come to him, John O'Neill and I had talked about this several times in the last year and a half. We just never had time to implement it, and I felt like if we don't start doing it in small increments, we're never going to do it. Other communities have. I want my septic plan. I can click on I can go online and click on it and download my septic plan if we have a plot plan on file. It's a convenience for the community, and I've been researching grants for that as well. There are some grants that aren't state-driven that I think we might have a chance at getting extra funds to speed up that process. It's kind of going to be an electronic library that all of the departments can share, and everyone will have different permissions, and one person will be administering it. And I'm the keeper of the records, so I kind of feel like it's falling under my umbrella. So that's another project that she can help me with. I have talked to companies that have come in to find out what I'm in for. And one of the things they said is all these giant industrial plans, some of them are folded, and that's a big no-no in scanning. It's like triple the money. So this was something I thought, well, maybe she can take staples out. She can get them prepared for the company. We can only do, I believe you're only asking for $25,000, but we want it to be a 5-year plan, $25,000 a year. And the companies have told me other communities do it that way. We'll work until we spend the $25,000, and we'll wait till January and start, or July, and start again. So this would give her an opportunity in the afternoon. She wouldn't just be in the office when it's a down period. Usually these years, I'm ripping apart the vault. I'm trying to bring order to the disaster I made during an election year. And this would be a huge advantage for public records, for helping with the digitization, for helping support the girls in the office, giving them the mornings off the phones and the counter so that they can focus on detailed-orientated things. The busier we are and the more distracted it is, I think the manager's office and my office get phone calls for every department, and it's almost like we're the information. So, you know, they want to cut a tree down, they call the town clerk. So it's very distracting, it's very high volume, and it's, you know, up and down as the public is. In addition to all of that, as you know, we produce birth records, death records, marriage license, marriage intentions, flammable permits, raffle and bazaar permits, the historical record preservation that we spoke about. We take in all decisions and permits from all offices. Most of my documents have to be permanent by the state law, so they have to be stored, which is another motivation. When I need to get a Board of Appeals, I'm picking up 50 to 100-pound boxes and digging through files. If they were online, it would just be a click, and it would save my hourly rate from digging through my archives to find them. Dog licensing, last year we did 2,764 dogs. We swear in notaries. We're commissioners to qualify, so we swear in notaries and anyone that's appointed by the governor that doesn't want to go into Boston.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that.
I swear in all the police and fire employees and promotions. We distribute the open meeting law to all boards and committees and commissions. We process business certificates. We distribute campaign finance forms that are submitted and post them to the website as required by law. We also take in poll locations and bill the various utility companies, posting meetings and agendas on the websites, helping giving guidance for open meeting law to some of the recording secretaries. We accept and log minutes for all boards and committees. We take in any conflict of interest disclosures. All legal documents being served to the town come through my office. All contracts are filed with my office. We mail and take in the census, as I said, 10,342 households were mailed a census. That's not hard for me because I have a company. It's when they come in that's a little difficult. They come in by email, by scanning, by faxing, by Dropbox, by mail. We're pretty buried for about 2 months, January, February, and on top of that, the dogs are coming in at the same time. So that's basically my reasoning for asking. I did exhaust. 2021 was when the election law started changing. 2016 was the first early voting election. I have tried to exhaust everything before I expand the staff, but I feel like it's time to do that before we start making mistakes. We have a lot of, maybe not this year, it's a local election, but we have a lot of watchdog groups that we can't afford to make a mistake. And if we're overwhelmed and overworked, that's when they're going to happen. So this was my way of preventing that. Does anyone have any questions on any of these? I know it was a lot of information. I promise the other two budgets are short.
So you talked about the census.
Yes.
So that's that one-page thing that everyone gets mailed. Legally, do you have to get it returned to you guys, or and this is creating work for somebody else? So if it's a no, but could we create an online form where it gets mailed to people and it's like go to the town website and click here and?
No, they don't have that yet. They don't
Okay.
have that yet. We need the signature, but it can't be electronic. They are allowing scanning and emailing, which is
Yeah.
it's problematic because we can't scan it with our equipment because it's a copy. But it's maybe at some point they're upgrading our voter database in the state level. So hopefully they start moving in that area because they've
Yeah.
started doing that with applications for vote by mail in overseas voting. But no, we're not there yet. They come back in and we have to make the changes manually.
Right. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
a
so.
lot of work.
Yeah, it really is. When there's no changes, it's fine. We sort it, no changes and changes, and then we have to manually go into each household. And then in June, before June, I have to inactivate. So anyone that hasn't returned it, I make them, they don't get deleted, but they get inactivated. So they have to prove they live in the community to vote in the community, because they didn't return their census. So that's another whole layer, because we have to send out confirmation cards, and they come back to my office, and we have to make them active if they sign the card and send it back. And we do that manually as well.
In the past, did you do some kind of public campaign to remind people to return their census?
We've been using Facebook quite a bit. I've
Okay.
expanded my assistant town clerk's role, so we're trying to reach out and get people to check their voter registration and to return their census and to register their dog before March 31st. She sends out electronic emails through our dog software program that will, if you haven't registered your dog before March 31st, we try to warn them that they're going to have a late fee.
Right.
So that's been helpful. And the public has responded. Our numbers are better
Good.
because of it. And I think a lot of people do still read Facebook. So that's been helpful as well.
Joe?
You had mentioned digitizing paper records. Is the end goal to digitize every piece of paper that you have, or certain ones?
So I think any decision, permanent decision or document that is helpful to a homeowner it's important to digitize so that they have access to it without having to put in a public records request. They could just go and click and get their septic system, that's a big request. They need to know where their system is. Some new homeowners don't know. So they come into the health department and ask for the plan. And a lot of the industrial real estate agents from Oklahoma want, these plans is 35 to 50 sheets, and they're huge and massive, and it was industrial parks, and it's utilities and road work and all of those things. So there's a whole room full of them. The rolled ones are easy, because we can just send them off to be scanned, but it's the folded up in the file cabinets that we're gonna have a struggle with. So it's almost good that we can only do so much every year, because we can spend the rest of the year preparing for the next year. Taking the staples out, flattening it, because we literally have to flatten it out on a table and let it sit for a few days until it's ready to be scanned. And then it's a whole team effort where we're gonna figure out what software we're gonna use and how we're gonna label that and how that's gonna work and who's gonna have permissions to what. So, people can't just go in and delete a document that's in this program. It's going to be something that, they go on. The public has one, almost like our GIS. The public has one view, and maybe engineering has more options to view. It's going to be similar to that, and I think it will help the public quite a bit.
So for the documents that are in scope, based on the project plans you have and the resources you have in place, when do you project finishing the project?
Right now, we're talking 5 years.
Yeah, I mean,
But I can't, I don't know how fast they're gonna work. I'd have a better response next year, I think, if everything passes. I'd have a better response next year based on how fast they worked with us. I think we're focusing on planning and we're focusing on building. They have the most of the requests. I'm sure Val can confirm that for me.
yeah, I can follow up on that just a little bit. $125,000 over 5 years isn't going to finish it for the town. That's not gonna be enough funding for records. They generally, these companies look at it by inch. They walk into a file room and they said, you've got so many inches of files and we charge you by the inch and that's extra for plans. We'll be looking for additional funds to supplement the $25,000 that's in the capital plan via grants and other sources. But I wouldn't be surprised if this is something that we're continuing to do, for 10 years to try to get everything documented. The plans that are in planning and conservation, the plans that are in the building department, those files are, we've got reams and reams of documents that need to get sorted and scanned and placed in a method that we can do it. So we're trying to do it right. We may be able to speed up once we have the system down and we've got but the goal is for everybody to just understand that we need to, as a town, just start doing it.
It's a massive amount of planning decisions and Board of Appeal decisions that Board of Appeals, they go on, and we have people coming in, and I get asked more for those than most, only because they're trying to figure out a way to have their lot grandfathered into something, or if it has a variance, because it makes their project that much easier. And the industrial parks they're very high volume. And when one goes up for sale, we have 6 different real estate agents. So we try to keep that, once we have one set scanned, we know where it is, so we can just keep sending it out, because you'll get the same request over and over and over again. I think last year I had about 260 requests for public records. And it's only getting larger, and a lot of it, I know Val has all her documents now, they're applying electronically. So the engineers she works with send them, she has an electronic copy. So we're talking the 80s and the 70s, and that's where the real struggle is with some of these records. And they weigh quite a bit to drag out. I'd love to be able to put them away for life and not have to drag it out again. But, any other questions?
Anything else? No?
So that was my large change. Oh, sorry, I have,
No, go ahead.
I have elections and I have registrars.
We have a few more.
So that was my, that was budget that had the most change. Most of my budget, they know it because they see me every year. My budget usually doesn't change very much. My elections budget, part-time election salaries, this category includes any payroll for the 4 events that we'll have this fiscal year that we know about. I've included this for the local election, annual town meeting, special town meeting, and special election. This category changes every year depending on the events I'll be running. Printing, advertising, and binding. I budgeted for the printing of the ballots for the 2 planned local elections. You'll see a rather significant change in that. Eric and I discussed this because the September ballot question, I'm afraid of a really large response. I typically order the same amount of ballots for every local election. We don't get a lot of contested elections. We don't get a high turnout. But with this, I think we will. There's a big interest in this school, and the parents want it, and I think we're going to have a very large turnout. And we're going to be doing ballot in person at my counter. I'm not hiring a staff, but I am going to offer it at my counter. We are going to be having mailed out ballots, and I think we're going to have a strong response to that. So I did budget for a little bit more. I usually spend about $3,000 to $4,000 on ballots. I budgeted for 16 because I don't want to run out of ballots. I really don't want to run. Then you're hand counting. You're printing them out off on paper, and you're hand counting all night long. And it's a disaster, and it makes us look really bad. So I really don't want to run out of ballots. So that's why I boosted that up a little bit. Miscellaneous contractual services, these usually stay the same every year. General supplementation, and that is only spent if we change our inhabitants' bylaws. That's general code. So we're paying for the attorneys at general code to upload and alter what we have on our website. And they recommend that amount just in case, because some communities have a lot of changes in a year, some have none. I don't believe we spent it last year. I don't believe we had any inhabitants bylaw changes last year. So that went back into the general fund. And then there's a poll pad annual support fee, the same amount as last year. This is new, poll pad software upgrade for poll pad 1 and 3. They're our oldest poll pads. Their hardware is no longer supported. So they offer us a significant discount to upgrade it so that they can upgrade the software that's on the poll pads. Image cast coding. This is to pay for when we have my memory cards and my tabulators programmed. That's a fee we have every year. It's usually based on how many events we have. Sound system for the annual town meeting and special town meeting. He told me to budget for $5,000 an event, but the last event I had, he only charged us $3,620. So I did as he suggested. He said he's having trouble with staff, and his salaries are going up, and his prices are probably going to go up as well. But he didn't guarantee it. E-code 360 maintenance fee is that's just the maintenance fee for general code. So, and the implementation is the legal fees, or the supplementation rather, is the legal fees. The E-code is the software and support if there's something wrong. Furnishings and equipment. One of my registrars, I'm going to be using 2 locations eventually. Well, as of April, we're going to be in 2 locations for my precincts. So 4, 5, and 6 will be here. 1, 2, and 3 will be at the senior center, and this building will move to the new. That precinct will move to the new. I have a registrar that goes out, and one registrar has a poll pad, and it's my spare poll pad, and she helps the public with looking up precincts. It would be helpful if I had one in both. My tabulators, I have 2 spares. I'd like to have 2 spares of the poll pad, so if one goes down, I still have a spare. Still have one programmed ready to go if something disastrous happens during the day. A big push right now from the State Department is disaster preparedness, because there have been some unfortunate incidences. As you saw, they ran out of ballots in Boston and at the presidential election, and it was pretty big. It was pretty large. Does anyone have any questions about the elections? No? Okay. So I'll go right on to registrars. There's pretty much 3 Throughout the year, I'm required to do certain mailings, so for printing, advertising, and binding. The census only increased slightly due to quotes from my vendor. I also do a mass inactivation in the spring. People who did not return their census is inactivated, and I have postcards that we have mailed out to them. This has return postage on it as required by law, and it allows them to sign it and mail it back to us. They'll then become activated. Their census year won't increase, but they'll become activated. They won't have to bring a license to the polls. So this is for census prep, confirmation mailing services, street book list printing, postcard precinct changes included in this as well. That's new because precincts 4, 5, and 6 are going to be moving in this fiscal year. I need to notify every household in those precincts where their new address is. Even though it's still the town hall, it's not 121 Glen Road. Registrar's postage increased slightly due to the precinct notice. And that's it. If you have any questions about the registrars.
You ready? No? No, I don't think so.
No? Okay.
All right. Please state your name and address, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you for the opportunity to come before you. As you know, when we hire a new employee in town, the town's self-insured for employee health benefits, which covers not only them but their families. And the town has to pay a lot of money for stop-loss insurance, but we have a deductible of $175,000. And before the town collects any money, a claim, not cumulative claims, a claim has to go over $175,000. And so to bring a new employee on, I don't think is such a great idea, just rubber stamping that. I do have a suggestion, though, that when it comes to dog licenses or any other things that could alleviate your workload, I would suggest that the town adopt a policy where people would have to go down to the police department, because since we've hired dispatchers and it's costing us like millions of dollars a year with salary and employee benefits, there's a duty officer with little to do. And I think that duty officer booth, the guy in the booth there, could handle dog licenses. I think he could maybe even handle passports or some other things that your department does that can be pushed over to there. You mentioned that you have a advertising budget. Is that in addition? Is that in addition to the town manager's department's printing budget?
Advertising budget.
Printing budget.
It is in addition to. It is a state requirement. So it's a state election law.
Okay, so you have thousands of dollars for printing.
Mm-hmm.
The manager's office has thousands of dollars of printing. And the book that's right in front of you, the budget book,
Mm-hmm.
there's not one single budget book here for anybody in the audience or the town that comes in here that would like to follow along. And I think that that's wrong.
Eric, don't they sell budget books?
Yep.
Oh. It's similar to the street listing book. I
Yeah,
charge a fee. It's in my fee
I'm
schedule
aware of
to
that.
sell
I'm
the
aware of
street
that.
listing book.
I'm
So it is
also
available to the public.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm aware of that, though. But I'm also aware that the town's incorporated as a nonprofit, and it's like double dipping. You charge people in taxes, and then you want to charge them for the book when you already got budgeted for printing the book. The other thing that I'd like to say is when it comes to records and copies and storage, we have an engineering department, and we have one of the employees in the engineering department that is a GIS guy. And I find it very hard to believe that he is just so inundated with work that he couldn't make copies of plans. And my suggestion is not to hire an additional employee, pass off some of the work to the duty officer, pass off some of the work to the GIS guy, and lastly, with regard to
Mr. McDonald,
other...
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but your time is long since up. So I appreciate
I'll make this quick then.
I appreciate your comments.
I'll make this super quick.
I just wanted to, I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt, I just wanted to respond to a couple of things, if that's okay.
You want to respond to something?
Yeah, there's just to clarify a couple of things.
Of course.
So first, There was a little, just for the public, that was a little misunderstanding of how stop-loss insurance works. It's a separate insurance policy from our health insurance. So if we have large claims, if a claim reaches a certain point, then stop-loss takes over. It saves the town from getting hit with really large claims above our regular insurance policy. So that's how that works. Second, just to be clarified, the town is not a nonprofit, we're a municipality, so we're not a 501c3 or anything. I don't want people to think that we're doing something different than we are. We are a municipality, so I just wanted to clarify this.
Okay.
And the municipality is not a for-profit corporation, but, Mr.
All right,
Manager,
Mr.
can you just
McDonald.
clarify one thing? I am correct in saying that, because our previous managers have clearly stated at multiple meetings that the town's self-insured for employee health benefits up to, maybe it's higher now, but it was ridiculously climbing up to $175,000, but the previous manager, that was the last deductible amount that I heard, that before the town collects any money from stop-loss insurance, a claim has to go over $175,000. And so when you're looking at hiring new employees, you got to take a really hard look at pensions. You got to take a hard look at employee, this fact that we're self-insured and we got that massive amount of money that we have to come up with.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. You've exceeded your time significantly.
Okay, maybe you can just,
So,
I'll let
we
you speak.
need-
Why don't you
thank you.
clarify all of this to the town?
Thank you very much, Beth. It's been a pleasure to see you again.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next department is the Historical Commission. On page 57.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Nice to see you all again.
Same.
Thanks for having us. Bonnie Smith, Historical Commission Chair, and I have with me Matt Bears, who's our current curator, who's been with us since October of 2023. I just want to just briefly say something, then I'm going to turn it over to Matt. We've had a really productive year, and thanks for the support from you and the townspeople and Dennis and the public buildings crew and the DPW. We're able to keep our beautiful museum standing and looking great. If anybody's been down there recently, which probably all go by it on a regular basis, we do have a new roof on our carriage house. And that got put on in the summer. And the group that just did our museum got it done in record time, like 3 days. They got it done before the snowstorm. The only thing they didn't get a chance to do is put on the gutters, which are going on. We're going on yesterday, today, and maybe tomorrow to finish that up. But it looks great. It looks great. Dennis Kelly is meeting with the window group, window contractor. I think he said at the end of this week. So that project should be started soon. So we're very excited about that. We're not sure how that's going to work because they're obviously going to be doing restoration work on the windows. So we're not sure whether they're going to be doing it on site or taking them out. We're not sure, but Dennis will let us know, keeps us in the loop as to what's going on. So with that going on, we don't know whether to open or close or try to do our tours while this is going on, but we try. We try. He has worked very, very hard, Dennis has, to be able to bring those 3 projects in well below budget. The carriage house came in maybe a third of what was documented, what was approved. The museum, because we sat with Eric and Dennis and Eric and I was there representing, the commission, that we chose to go with the asphalt roof on the carriage house because obviously the main goal is to protect the building and the artifacts within. And so rather than go with the cedar shake roof that was on it previously, and we're really not sure that was ever on the building in the past anyway. So, and that was only on there for 11 years. So we chose to go and come to an agreement that the and it matches the carriage house. And so that came in a little over half of what was allotted for that roof. So that was amazing. And he's working very, very closely with the windows folks to get that done. And that's a little bit of a different project, obviously, because it's a restoration thing, but he evidently has an amazing company that's gonna come in and do that for us. So with that, I will turn this over to Matt.
Yes. Could I just ask you one question
Yes.
before
Of course.
we get started? I was driving by the other day, the roofs look great, very, very nice, and I was kind of struck by the shutters, and they really need a lot of work. So will they be painted, repaired, whatever, with
used
the
to-
new windows?
Well, that's another project we'll have to get into. We used to talk about shutters, windows and shutters every meeting, to the point where Jerry Duggan was a former commissioner. He was like, can we not talk about shutters anymore? It's like, they've got to, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
They detract from
Yep.
all the other improvements that you're going to be making,
Yep.
and with nice new windows in there.
That may be something that Dennis's crew can maybe do that work.
Are they historical in any way,
Um,
or just wooden shutters?
They're wooden shutters. We did have a suggestion years ago. It's like, we could have sucked the air out of the room when this person said it. It's like, why don't we just put vinyl shutters on there? And we went, no way, we're not putting vinyl shutters. But you're absolutely right. The shutters need some work. We do have a lot of shutters that have been taken down off the building over the years, and we still have them. They're in storage. But I think that might have been because they were really in disrepair and looked worse than what's on there now. So you're absolutely right, that's something we're
Well,
gonna have
hopefully
to.
that can be done
Yep.
as well. And now, so you're going to be doing a phased window project, correct? Like one side of the building at a time?
I don't know how they're gonna do that. Dennis is gonna be working with them. We raised the money, as you know, to have 12 of them restored over the years. She used to come and take them out, put on a piece of plywood, take them back to her shop, work on them, bring them back and put them back. I'm not sure how that's gonna work. I really don't.
Okay, because that would be a great time to just take care of the shutters as you move along with the windows.
Absolutely.
And it wouldn't be as big a project.
Yeah,
But
we
anyway,
will.
well, I
we
hope
will
you
Chat
get
with
there.
Dennis, absolutely.
Yeah, I will,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, Matt.
Oh, no worries. And as Bonnie mentioned, my name is Matt Beers. I'm the curator of the Wilmington Town Museum. First and foremost, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about the achievements and a lot of the accomplishments that we've had in the past year. As Bonnie mentioned, we're very thankful for you guys as well as Dennis's support for the window and the roof restoration project. They did come under budget, which is awesome. And hopefully this entire thing will make it, keep it historically accurate and keep its historical integrity, but also put us on the map for a tourist destination, not just for locals in the community, but outside of that. Almost every day we get people who say, oh, we've driven past this building for 50 years, but I've never stopped here. And almost always they are outside of town. And hopefully with this restoration projects going on, it will attract even more people in addition to that. But I wanted to talk about and highlight some of our accomplishments that we had in the past year. One of our strongest suits in this aspect was our visitation rates. In the past year, we've actually doubled our visitation from 2023. So 2023, we had about 520 visitors for daily tours, private tours, events, other things like that. But in 2024, we had just under 1,100. And again, that includes just walk-in tours, private tours, and other events and such. And part of my responsibility is to try to put us on the map and put us on a more global network. So we've been really pushing and getting a bigger social media presence. And so we've increased our followers across 3 of our platforms to 21%. And we created our Instagram page, and we've seen tremendous feedback and engagement with the community from there. In addition to that, we've had tremendous strides with school groups and school field trips. We hosted the entire third grade class from Wilmington. We're very thankful for the teachers and the faculty and the chaperones who set that up for us. And almost every day we get people, students say, "Oh, I want to bring my parents here," and I remember the great time that we had. So we're very thankful for hosting them. We've also hosted the AP US History class from the Wilmington High School, and we talked more comprehensive subjects, including the Underground Railroad and other things like that, that goes beyond the third grade curriculum. And right now we're actually working on developing a Wilmington history course with the high school to, again, talk about more of the comprehensive subjects specific to Wilmington's history. Last year, we've had a number of different events, including our Night at the Museum event, which we had very successful, about 250 people in total. And we get feedback almost all the time about how great an event that was. We have also had regular veterans coffee socials, of course, with the veterans. We get about 15 veterans to attend in those. We've also updated all of our exhibitions in all of our rooms to make it historically accurate and historically period appropriate, but also to show off the different time periods in which the room and the house has progressed, with new interpretive signage to talk about and supplement a lot of the interpretive material that we don't normally talk about in the tours, and also 2 new exhibitions, one rotating, one permanent as well. In our collections, we've acquired about 60 different objects in the past year, a few of which I would like to highlight, is the Barrows International Harvester truck from around 1923, back in March of 2024. We also, back in October, acquired an 8-day grandfather clock that was bought by Jonathan Eves in 1791. We also had a powder flask that was believed to belong to Corporal Theodore Butters, who unfortunately lost his life during the Battle of Gettysburg. And lastly, something more recently that I've been working on is working on putting our collection into our museum software. It's standard to have at least 80% of the collection in its entirety into some sort of software. Right now, in 2023, I started with about 5%. Now we've increased that number to about 21.3%, which is about 650, maybe about 700 objects in total. So in total, I think we have about 6,000 objects, which is pretty large for a historical commission or a museum for our size. So that being said, I think I'm going to hand it back over to Bonnie.
Okay. So the one thing I just want to point out, and I'm not sure if you've heard, we've worked very hard in developing a demolition delay bylaw for Wilmington. We are the only town within our whole area that doesn't have any kind of protection for our historic homes. We've been working with Eric. We have a commission member, Joe Jackson, who worked very, very hard pulling demolition delay bylaws from the different towns around us. So he fashioned a bylaw after Andover's bylaw and then ran it through past our attorneys to look at it and make sure it was worded properly. So it will be on the May annual town meeting as a warrant article. Hopefully the town folk will approve this. There's different steps to it, somebody pulls a permit, the commission has, X amount of days to do this, and then X amount of days, but it could possibly be up to a year delay on taking any historic property down in Wilmington. And in the meantime, hopefully, the people who are trying to sell or take it down or whatever will do the right thing and try to find a person to purchase the property, love it, buy it, live in it for many years to come. So that's what we're hoping. We are asking for additional hours for the curator's position. Right now, it's 19 hours a week, and as you can see from what Matt has talked about, and I do have in front of me his his job description, and anything that's like highlighted in yellow is the additional things that Matt has taken on. And it's quite daunting for him to do all of that within a 19-hour week. We're fortunate to have a couple of unpaid interns come in, and we also just brought on the senior tax write-off person, Carolyn Kenny, and so she helps out as well. The commission steps in a lot to help out with anything that has to be done. We could do this in two ways. You know, obviously, one of the ways is to make the position full-time with benefits, but again, that's very expensive. We have also talked to Eric about possibly bringing on another part-time person to work alongside Matt, and that would help in many ways. It would alleviate that job load. It would also, if in fact we were faced with someone leaving and we needed to advertise for another curator, it'd be more attractive if we had the position full-time. We would get a more qualified person if it was full-time. However, if we were faced with one or the other part-time people leaving, then we would have backup. And so we could continue on until we could hire another part-time person. And that salary would either be, depending on the person's qualifications, would be either equal or less than this, okay? The other thing that would be helpful to have someone, right now, there's no one in the building from Wednesday to Sunday. And that has put a real strain on the public buildings guys to come in and make sure they're checking it constantly. We did have a couple of frozen pipes this year. And again, the weather's been terrible, and from what Dennis says, if you ever put a heat gun on that building, it's like, you know, it's a wind tunnel. So we understand that. But having somebody there more often, we could increase tours, workload, whatever. And in addition to that, I've talked to Beth a little bit through Eric about having this person be more of like an archivist, a town archivist that would help with the things that Beth has going on. We could also support Lou Smaglia with that kind of endeavor, and the library. And we've talked to all three of them, and they are very excited about thinking that we could provide them with some services over and above just taking care of the museum. Let's see. I guess that's our presentation. I don't know if you have anything more, Matt, you want to? Do you have any questions? I'm sorry.
So just, what you were just talking about with either adding hours to Matt or, you know, finding another part-time, is that reflected in this budget, or would that be
Well,
in
you
another
know,
year?
I'm not that proficient in the process.
It doesn't
So
appear to be reflected here, that's why I'm
It is
asking.
not on here, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
It was a request, it's not currently in the budget.
Okay.
Okay.
It's something that we maybe, we discussed, and it didn't go into the budget at this point. It's something that we're thinking about trying to do during the year, and having to come back and have conversations with the FinCom about, you know, how do we get extra resources to them, but it's not currently in the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Joe?
You had mentioned getting the collection into some form of a software. what does that entail? Like taking pictures,
It's
description?
it's digitization, but it's also recording the metadata specifically as to what it is. First of all, dimensions, sometimes transcribing if it's a hand record, but also recording and doing the research behind the provenance or the history of where it came from, because a lot of the objects in particular is the power is the history of that specific object. And part of that is just writing and consolidating it into something that's more tangible to eventually be more accessible for, say, if it would be put online or something like that. So the idea is for people to go in and maybe type in specific words, like if you're doing research on one person, it'll come up with all of these different objects, how that pertains to that specific subject, and I guess the eventual goal to make it more accessible for exhibitions, but also research.
Like a lot of
And
work.
he's looking towards getting this information online as well,
Yeah.
as a researchable database.
Yeah, we get calls pretty much every single week about, I have an old house, trying to do some research on it, and this would make that much more easier.
And right now, it's about 6,000 items.
It's about 6,000, yeah.
You've done 700.
Right now it's actually about closer to 800. I've done a lot more since the end of 2024, but just in 2024 it was about 700.
And because we try to kind of like justify what we have in a box, Matt has, it's all kind of cataloged, but somebody over the years has brought down some amazing artifacts and donated them to the museum, and we've taken them in. But not a lot of research has been done on these items, which is where Matt is coming in now and researching. We have deaccessioned quite a few items that just don't fit what we have.
Yeah.
So, and that's part of the process as well. One of the, can you address the cannonball? Because I'm always so,
Yeah, well, I think
I'm
a
so
great
excited
example,
about the
a great
cannonball.
example of this is about a year ago we found a cannonball in the collection, which we didn't know what it was, but then we came to the realization, we did the research that it was donated to the town back in 1920 something, but then it was the stories that it was collected by a provincial or Minutemen or militiamen on April 19, 1775 during the battle at Concord, picked it up with them and delivered it back to Wilmington, which we now have in display in our museum.
Yeah. So it was given to us from the library. I evidently was donated from the family to the library. The library was saying, what do we have this for? It should go to the museum. And it's been in a box. And so Matt researched it and found that is in fact, and did you not find out that it may be like only one of 3 in existence?
Well, on display.
Maybe, on display. So
Yeah.
it's pretty exciting to have that as well. So it's a lot of work to each individual piece to research it, take some time.
Any other questions, comments? All right,
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
would you hold on for 1 minute in case there's a comment?
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Matt. Do you have any experience with grant writing?
I do, and I have looked for grant opportunities, most of which are either from the state, specifically state earmarks, or maybe local nonprofits, many of which are actually with the federal government, particular to museums and museum operations.
And have you received any grant money that you've actually yourself participated in writing for a grant?
No, unfortunately, because a lot of the grants that we've found, there are a lot of roadblocks pertaining to like preservation restrictions onto the property, and we're just not there at the point where we can actually put one onto the property, and a lot of which are not really relevant to what we're trying to do at this moment. But it is an option that we are always looking for. We're striving to find more opportunities.
Have you ever reached out to the Cummings Foundation for any grants?
No, I'm not familiar.
Yes, we have, Matt. We have. I'm
Okay.
sorry, before
Oh.
Matt came.
Okay.
Unfortunately, because we are a municipally owned property, we didn't qualify
Okay.
for that. And quite a few of the grants that are out there are also matching grants, and we don't have the funds to match a grant. So, you know,
Okay.
that we can work on.
We have about $40 million of free cash in the bank, but I don't want to go down that road right now. But I did want to speak about the bylaw, how you want to make people wait a year before they knock their building down. I have a little bit of a problem with that because there are people who pass away and they may still have a mortgage and their family may need to sell that building. And if they have to wait a long time for some historic building lover to buy it, it could be a problem for them. In addition to that, if they have to pay taxes and they're holding on to a building that's encumbered by some type of bylaw, I think that could be a problem. I don't really like the idea of putting more restrictions on people. I think the spirit of it is probably to protect our historic district. I'm sure that your heart's in the right place, but I really don't think that potentially causing some financial damage to people is really worth it. But I did have a question. Is there anything in that bylaw that gives people some type of exclusion from having to pay property taxes if they are in a situation where they're going to sell it?
Not to
and
my
then-
knowledge.
I'll
So-
allow this answer, and then you've exceeded your time. Go
Not
ahead.
not to my knowledge.
Okay,
No.
so basically you want to tie somebody
You've
up.
exceeded your time now, Mr. McDonald. Thank you
Okay, I'll
very
tell you what,
much.
how about you ask all these questions?
Thank you very
Why
much.
don't you get to the bottom of it since it's a
Thank you so
bylaw?
much for coming in tonight.
Thank you, thank you. Appreciate
Nice to
it.
see you both again.
Likewise.
Last but certainly not least, our Planning and Conservation Department. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Valerie Gingrich, Director of Planning and Conservation.
Budget is on page 45.
Thank you for having me tonight and accommodating me.
Of course.
This will be very brief. Our FY '26 budget, really, the only increases that you're seeing are the contracted salary increases. The line items are almost exactly the same. We did shift $500 of furnishing and equipment up to training, just because what we're seeing is additional need for training funds and less need for furnishings and equipment. So we did that little shift, but overall it's the same as last year. We are going to be undertaking some efforts to revise our sign bylaw in FY '26, and also the Conservation Commission's been talking about a local wetlands bylaw. So those will be some efforts, and we'll be doing that work with department staff. So probably no need for outside services, although we do have miscellaneous contractual services of $12,000 to kind of pull in some technical support if we need a little bit of that. And then kind of off budget, we used ARPA money for the facade grant that we finished doing the reimbursements for this last year. I think it was over $180,000 that was distributed to local businesses for COVID relief. And then we do have an earmark, an ARPA 2 earmark that went through DCR for design and permitting of a pedestrian bridge, pedestrian trail bridge at Town Park. So if you walk down I guess, past the softball field at Town Park, you can kind of take a right, and you're in the kind of Middlesex Canal bed, and you hit a point where you come up to the Maple Meadow Brook, and there's the aqueduct with the stone sides on it. And the canal, you can see the canal bed on the other side. When the canal folks do their tours, they actually kind of go down into the water and get in the water and go, or use a trunk of a tree that might have gotten stuck there. It's always been a goal of theirs. It's a goal of our open space plan to have a trail bridge there so that folks can walk all the way from Town Park up to Butters Row, and then further even up to Patches Pond. So it creates a nice network. It's almost our version of a rail trail, but it's the canal trail. So we got $150,000 as an ARPA earmark for design and permitting of that, and we're not quite to, I'd say we're at 75% design, and we'll start permitting very soon. So that'll be an effort that we take through FY '26. And then after that, we'll be looking for funding to construct it, looking for grants for that.
What do you anticipate that may be? How much?
The amount?
Yeah.
It's shocking. So we
You
did.
don't like to hear that.
I know. They,
Bridges are expensive.
yeah, our engineering consultant did a feasibility study for us before they started doing the design, and they estimated that it could cost up to $500,000. So it is quite a bit of, or it could cost quite a bit of money. So we're going to be looking for a lot of different ways to figure that out.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So, and I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Go ahead, Joe.
Would any of the grants you'd be seeking be potentially impacted by the MBTA issue?
That's a great question. The trail grants that the state has, I don't know that I saw them on the list, but I don't know that the list is all encompassing of what will be impacted. So I don't know that we know that yet. Yeah.
Did you have anything?
Nope.
There's a couple of projects around town that are built but are still empty or have not started building. So Princeton Properties, I had asked you about that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to discuss that so that
Sure.
because people all over town
Are wondering?
asking about
Sure.
that? Yeah.
So Princeton Properties, it's at the corner of Jefferson and Middlesex, just across from Eli's. So they took down the buildings, demoed the buildings, I think that was last year. They are working on their building permit plans, and they have a whole list of items that they have to submit to us for review before they get a building permit. So they're working on traffic mitigation plans. They're working on those components. So we are seeing some movement for that project to move forward. I think they've said that they'd like to start building this year. So we're anticipating seeing some additional materials from them.
Salem Street, the warehousing.
Oh, 800 Salem Street. So, right, that's a new warehouse, constructed, not occupied. That is currently in front of the planning board with a proposal for Amazon to occupy that building as a same-day delivery facility. Obviously, one of the big, I think the concern there is traffic. So they submitted a traffic report. Our traffic consultant asked them for updated counts. So they did that very recently. And all of that information is right now being reviewed by our traffic consultants to see what mitigation will be necessary. The property owners has agreed to do transportation mitigation. I think it'll be a conversation about the scale of that. But that's in front of the planning board currently, so if folks are interested in that, feel free to call our office or come to the planning board meetings. But I think we're just getting into those discussions about the traffic report.
Have they finished with the landscaping in there? So when I drive by there, I'm always amazed that there's no fence at the top of that site. So if you're driving, I guess it would be north into Wilmington, there's just a huge drop-off there. And I was just wondering if that was something that they had planned, or if it was going to be left like that.
Along Salem Street?
Yeah.
They don't have a fence planned. I do think that there was, I do remember maybe a guardrail.
Okay.
They'll have to do, with this proposal, they're proposing to, you know how they widened to make a turn lane for the trucks into that site on Salem Street? So they'll need to do that at the other entrance as well for this proposal. That's one of the things that they've already agreed to do. So you'll see some changes along Salem Street with those improvements. But I know that there was no fence proposed, and I'm trying to remember if there was a guardrail, but I can't quite remember.
Okay, I hope so. The warehousing by Lucci's.
That one's still, so it's 175 Lowell Street, I think the address is now. That's still vacant, and we haven't heard anything about tenants for that building at all.
Any other questions? No?
Good evening, Valerie. Thank you for being here. Through you, okay to ask her some questions?
Yes, still be kept to the 3 minutes.
Okay. I would appreciate if you wouldn't call her time my time.
Mr. McDonald, I cannot do that. You have 3 minutes. You're better off honestly stating your comments rather than asking for questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Valerie, as you know, I put forth an amendment that didn't get taken up at the special town meeting, and it was for the purpose of trying to get the town a home rule petition and get an exemption from the MBTA requirement so we didn't lose our funding and so that we can provide some affordable senior housing. Can you tell us how long it's been since affordable senior housing was built in Wilmington? Is it like how many decades, would you say?
Well, I guess it depends on what.
I'm not talking about over 55, or I mean that's not really affordable at 700,000, but.
So. Right, so it depends on what how you want to define affordable senior. We have had over 55 condos built at.
Yeah, I'm not talking about those.
Okay. They are affordable units, though, in those developments, a portion of them. But I guess
But nothing significant, right?
You're talking about, like, public housing, like the...
Well, Deming Way, which is a disaster, but nothing like with somebody who was very low income, who needed a place. That hasn't been built for like 50 years, right? But the reason why I asked you that is I just wanted to ask you if you discussed anything about my proposal for a home rule petition so that we don't lose funding, and if you guys are working on anything for affordable senior housing. Because I haven't seen, I sat through the selectmen meeting last night, and I listened to every single article that was coming before the town, including zoning articles, and I didn't hear one single article that had to do with affordable senior housing. And so if you're not working on anything, that's, just let me know, because I'll move on to something else.
I haven't discussed your proposal with anyone.
Okay. Okay.
I haven't.
Okay, but you understand that I was trying to do that so that we didn't lose millions of dollars in funding and we could do something for senior housing. But there was no misunderstanding about that, right?
I think I understand your intent, yeah.
Okay. And the other thing that I wanted to mention was, it sounded like when I was listening to the articles being read last night that you're bringing back the MBTA, the same MBTA article that was at the special town meeting, to see if we can get people to vote in favor of it again. Is that my understanding, or can you correct me if I'm wrong?
I don't know if that's a question for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, that's a question for this body at all.
Right, right.
No, no, I'm just,
Select board question.
I know that you guys probably definitely would not know that, because you don't want to ask these important questions.
Thank you,
But-
Mr. McDonald. Your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
It's been a pleasure to see you
Oh, by the way, can you,
tonight.
can you
Thank
let us know about Mr. Doherty's status?
So now we're moving on to other
Wilmington's
business.
version of Sleepy
Thank you
Joe
so
Biden.
much,
Thank you.
Valerie. It's nice to see you again.
You too, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other business, new business? No? We are not going to have the minutes available tonight, unfortunately, but probably in the next meeting, I would hope. Important dates, February 27th, which is Thursday, is we're meeting with the police and fire and dispatch. And then we have next Tuesday off, I believe. And the following Thursday, we'll meet with the schools. So those are going to be two powerful evenings. A lot of data in that. Any questions or comments?
At select board last night, I think in important dates, they mentioned the meeting for us voting.
Right.
Was that announced?
It was the 18th, I think.
March 18th.
18th.
That's the joint meeting, and then the
Right.
20th was
Right.
announced
But I
as our
hadn't
meeting.
gotten formal
Okay,
notice of that. Is-
I just read what they put.
yeah. I just wanted to check if that date was confirmed or not, so.
Okay. Yes, I think that's important for everybody to know. And Anthony, as a new person, after we go through the joint meeting on that Tuesday night, we convene in here for a discussion of every single warrant article in the book. And then we make our recommendation to the town that evening. So,
Are we doing it right after?
Date may be a challenge.
no, we're
It'll
gonna,
be
it's gonna be
Thursday,
a,
right?
yeah, I think Tuesday's gonna be a long night.
So it'll be the following Thursday that we
Yeah.
can do the vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was that meeting's scheduled for the 20th. The joint meeting's on the 18th,
Yeah.
so.
So,
And have your reading voice ready for the voting meeting.
yeah,
I fly to South Carolina. We'll talk about it.
okay, all right. All right, if there's nothing else to discuss, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you so much.